Welcome back for another video. Today we are going to be taking a look at the best tier list here in AnimeDefenders because I did my due diligence, I did my research, I computed the total DPS of a lot of units in the game, and now I have created the most best tier list in this game, the GOAT of all tier lists. With that being said, guys, our giveaway is going to start very soon for a pro gamer giveaway for 20,000 subscribers, and at 25,000 subscribers we're gonna be doing a secret almighty giveaway. So if you want to be part of these giveaways, then all you have to do is like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's start this tier list because we have a lot to talk about. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe for these giveaways and more awesome AnimeDefenders content. Alright, with that being said, this is the tier list right here. So, before you guys say anything, I want to remind you of this again, that just because these are the units in the very top right here, it doesn't mean that these are the units that you should fill your team with. For example, since these are the top 6 best units in the game, that means I should fill my team with these top 6 units. No. We're gonna be discussing team creation in a future or in a separate video because that's not how the team creation works, okay? But for now, we're gonna be discussing all of these right here. So let's actually click reset right here. And now, let's actually start with Ant King. So Ant King is going to go. Alright, so Ant King is going to be going in the mid or trash category. So Ant King is just not that good of a unit. Now let's not dwell too much on this because we're gonna take ages to finish. But yeah, he is not that good of a unit. Then here we have Bear King, and Bear King is going to go to the strong category right here because Bear King is a very strong unit. Then next you have Elf Wizardess, which is gonna be going to mid. Now, just in case you guys are gonna say, oh, how is Elf Wizardess better than Bear King? Well, number one, Elf Wizardess is only 3 placement, and his DPS is like a 3,000 less than Bear King's total DPS. And by the way, we are considering the best traits on these units, the best traits and the best spirit. So that means Elf Wizardess is gonna have Almighty, Bear King is gonna have Requiem with Crimson Spirit. That's just the best way to do it because you have to always be considering the best traits for this unit. So Bear King has more DPS than Elf Wizardess. That's why she's at mid. She actually has quite bad DPS now. Flame Dragon God is gonna be going to the top of strong, and then that's because he has a burn and he also has a good DPS, and that is the top of strong. So he's gonna go to the top of strong. Then we have Donut Master, and Donut Master is gonna go to meta support because he is cheap and he does a ton of slow. He's a cheap placement also, and he just does insane slow. He's a very good unit when it comes to slow. So yeah, very good. Then Prime Commander is gonna be going into the mid category. He is now one of the worst mythics in the game. Again, with Almighty, his DPS isn't even that good. Then we have Ice Dragon Queen, which is gonna go to the top of meta support as well because of her ability to slow. She is required in leaderboards. Now for most game modes, I think Donut Master is better than her because Donut Master is cheaper, but again, Ice Dragon Queen has a better stun. Jade Fire Knight is gonna be going to the bottom of strong, and again, this is because Jade Fire Knight has the curse debuff, which is very good. Curse debuff for placement, and I believe he is also a hybrid unit. So Jade Fire Knight is a hybrid unit, has debuff, has for placement, very good unit. He's gonna go to strong. Then Muscular Sorcerer is gonna be going to the top of strong, right beside or right behind Flame Dragon God. Pink Demon Witch is kind of bad actually. She's not that good of a farm unit, so she's gonna go to the support, around the bottom of support. Warrior Queen is actually gonna be going to the, I believe, the middle of mid. So he is going to be better than Elf Wizardess and Prime Commander, and this is because, or she has better DPS than both these units right here. She has better DPS than both of them. And again, there's a DPS list that I have that's pretty accurate. So she is better than these. And by the way, these are all ground units right here. Skull Warrior, trash. Sharpshooter, trash. So there you go. Now, let's move on to some secret units right here. So, Aether Knight is actually gonna be going into the bottom of meta. Now, all secret units are gonna be going into the meta category, except for one secret unit. But most secret units are so good that they are literally uncomparable to mythical units. Most of the secret units, even the worst ones, are better than the best mythical units. That's just how good these secret units are. So yeah, Aether Knight's gonna go to the bottom of meta, but he's still technically meta. Any secret unit except for one is in the meta. Then the pro gamer. Now for the pro gamer, he's gonna go in the middle of meta, and this is because of his utility. His ability to summon the enemies that he kill makes him very good for almost all game modes, except for a few. Now he's super good because if you place him just once in almost any game mode, he can literally carry with his summons. So if you place him once, you could just AFK and he'll pretty much do the job for you, which is why he's very good. Cursed Knight is gonna go higher than the pro gamer because Cursed Knight has an amazing debuff, he has an ability, and he also does good DPS. So all of that considered, the debuff, the DPS, and the nuke ability, that makes him one of the meta units in the game, and I would put him in most teams, okay? Especially for Infinite, I would actually put him in almost all teams because of his debuff ability. Then we have Demon Overlord, which is actually the second worst secret in the game. So Demon Overlord does have bleed buff, or does buff bleed, but according to the DPS tier list, his damage is actually one of the worst. And his he might actually go up in the ranking once there's a very overpowered secret that does a ton of bleed. But right now, he's gonna go to the bottom of meta, or he might actually just go to support, but I would still put him at meta because he does a good amount of damage. Then we have the Rift Sorcerer, which is going to be the fourth best unit in the game, and this is because he's cheap, he does a ton of he's cheap, his range is amazing, good DPS, and he also does slow, which is why he's a very good unit. Then we have the best unit in the game, which is going to be Dragon Mage. Now let me actually, guys, just show you something here right now. Dragon Mage is actually an insane unit. Look at the damage right here. So at max level 70 with Almighty, he will do 60,000 damage on placement. So even though he's 5,000 gold to place, I would place him and use him in almost all game modes because his range is good and his damage is good, and he's just an all-around really good unit. He is the best unit in the game right now. Dragon Mage is an absolute monster. So yeah, Dragon Mage is the best unit in the game right now. Alright, and on top of that, now that we have a Dragon Mage right here, Lunar Huntress is actually gonna go to the third spot. Now, Lunar Huntress is actually the most damaging unit in the game. However, the problem with Lunar Huntress is she is the most expensive unit in the game, even more expensive than Dragon Mage by around... Alright, so Dragon Mage has requires around 155,000 total cost in order to upgrade him. So 155,000 is actually not that bad, okay? Or actually, it's the second most expensive unit, so it's actually already kind of bad. But then, if you take into consideration, or if you take a look at Lunar Empress is 100,000 plus more expensive than Dragon Mage. So she does technically deals the most amount of damage in the game, the most amount of DPS, but she is so expensive that it has gone to a point where she's basically only really useful in infinite mode or in leaderboards. So she has an awesome ability, but again, just not good enough to be used in other game modes because her base and her starting damage is actually not that good, and she's also super expensive to use in almost any other game mode. Alright, now let us continue. Now we have Legion Assassin, which is actually gonna go into support. Now, he is a very good unit. Now, he's actually too good of a unit that I might actually just place him into the strong category because he does a good amount of DPS. He's a very good DPS unit, but I would probably just put him in support because he's a very good support unit, and we are actually going to be using Legion Assassin in our leaderboard run. Then next we have Shadow Dragon, which is actually going to be the second best unit in the game. So Dragon Mage is the first best unit, Shadow Dragon is the second, and then Lunar Empress is going to be the third best unit in the game. So the reason why Shadow Dragon is actually better than Lunar Huntress despite not having as much damage is because Shadow Dragon is a unit that has a buff ability, so he can buff other units. He's also very cheap, and he also has very good DPS. So even though he doesn't have as much DPS as Lunar Huntress or Lunar Empress, he has a buff ability that buffs other units, and also does a good amount of DPS while also being cheaper, which effectively makes him the second best unit in the game because again, these utility things is just very good. So it's not all about damage and DPS, it's also about utility, and cost. So if a unit is too expensive that you won't even be able to use the most out of that unit, then that really does kind of make that unit a little bit weaker. So for that reason, Shadow Dragon is the second best unit in the game. Then we have Bloomer, which is gonna go into support. Legion Veteran also support. And then Legion Captain is going right here, right besides the Pro Gamer. Now, Legion Captain's DPS is kind of terrible, kind of bad. Legion Captain's DPS is kind of bad. However, she summons units, and on top of summoning units, she also has a nuke ability. And so she summons, has a nuke ability, range is massive, and on top of having all of those, she's also very cheap. So she is a very good unit for a lot of game modes because she's cheap, she hits air, massive range, summons, and a nuke ability. So she's so good, and I will actually be bringing her into our infinite team that I will be doing with a bunch of other people. Now here, for meta support, the best support in the game right now currently is Pink Rockstar. She gives gold and she buffs you quite a lot, which is actually very good. Then Demon King Peak is gonna go right besides Legion Captain because Demon Captain or Demon King actually does a ton of DPS. And on top of doing a ton of DPS, but he does slow. So he is technically a support unit like Gojo. Alright, now we have Slime Spirit, and this is actually the only unit that's not gonna go into the meta category, and the reason for this is simple. That's because Slime Spirit is a unit that is in the what do you call this again? The leaderboard rewards. Now, the leaderboard reward units are never going to be meta units because if they make the leaderboard units meta units, this will technically make the rich even richer. So it's already hard to get into the leaderboards, and if you make the leaderboard units a must-have unit, then that will kind of screw over the normal players that are not in the leaderboards. Now, even though she's the worst secret in the game, she's technically the worst secret in the game, her damage or DPS is technically still higher than all these units right here. So yeah, his damage, his DPS is technically still lower than the units right here. Then now we have Solar Slayer, which is gonna be right here in meta. So yeah, Solar Slayer is gonna be right there. Chance Taker is gonna be, I believe, yeah, right below Solar Slayer. I believe Solar Slayer still does DPS, higher DPS. And actually, I might actually put Chance King right higher than Solar Slayer because Solar Slayer is only a... Right now, Solar Slayer is only infinite unit. So he's gonna go right there. And then this unit is gonna go right here, right? There are some other missing units that I'm actually gonna add. So I added the extra missing units, which is actually just a bunch of mythical units. So the extra missing units were just a bunch of mythics. And again, if you are looking for a team, most of the time you're just gonna be looking for these units right here and some of the units right here. Now the units in the middle right here, the strong, mid, and trash, these are beginner units only. And you don't really use them that much, so this one, it doesn't really matter that much because in the early game, the units that you have, as long as they're decent, it doesn't really matter. But in the end game, when you want to get to the leaderboards and stuff like that, that's when it really matters, and you're gonna have to have these meta units right here. So this is the most important that you have to really check out, and then the supports as well. The supports are very useful, but overall, the only support that you're really gonna need for most game modes is Pink Rockstar. And yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this video. Now, again, this is most likely the best tier list, and the tier list is based off of their total DPS, and not only their total DPS, but also the cost of these units and the abilities and whatnot. And I think this is why it's pretty much the best tier list in the game right now. And I will be making a guide as well on how to basically create a perfect team for game modes. And yeah, that's gonna be it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for watching, and peace out.